Hello, friends. We are here to review the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. We start with the episode where we ended at the dinner last episode, and they kind of replay the last 5 minutes so we can lead up to the fact where Kyle was finally like, I can't afford to feel depressed right now. Fine. She goes into this whole thing though, like Kyle is really a master of the flip. Like she's great at flipping. And she goes into this thing of, if you were really concerned for me, then this isn't really how you would address it. And you definitely wouldn't address it the way that you addressed it at your house. Like when they had the whole blow up and Sutton did the iconic name them thing. To which I still don't feel like Sutton really did anything wrong. I feel like she was responding and giving Kyle a taste of her own medicine. But, Sutton responds, as she already told Kyle when they were sitting on the couch before dinner. She's like, I had a lot going on and I apologize for how I acted. And then she says, and I also apologize for how you reacted. And I'm like, oh, Sutton. Like, Kyle was like, okay, well, thank you for apologizing on my behalf. And Sutton's like, you're welcome. And period. Because, yes, girl, like, you acted a fool, too. And I'm glad that we got the flashback of you storming out and screaming over nothing. I literally put in my notes, LMFAO, because, period. We then get Denise addressing Erica about, like, doing a switch up on her. Listen, I know that Denise had, like, whatever she had going on. She was very, like, disheveled, and there was a lot of things going on. But to me, she was making perfect sense. I mean, she just kept repeating and letting her know, girl, you were nice, you were cool at first, and then you started acting weird. Now, what she feels like Erica did, I don't know. I didn't watch that season. But also, I still don't feel like she needed a concrete, the way that she was saying it to me, it made sense. I didn't feel like she needed a concrete example. So I kind of felt like they were gaslighting her to a certain extent. And I didn't like how the edit was going to just kind of show that she was like disheveled and had a lot going on. Like, we get that, we got it, it was comedic, cool. But I don't know, I didn't like that they used that to make it seem like she didn't know what she was talking about, because I do feel like she knew what she was talking about. And I feel like she was clear enough to ascertain what she was talking about. I don't think she needed a specific example, especially when she told Erica, because Erica's like, is there something specific I did, or was it a whole thing? And she's like, girl, it was a whole thing. Like, do you feel like, let's take a break and you go watch the show, and then we can come back and we can do this? Like, she was completely coherent as I saw it. And even without all of that, I didn't need that. I figured Denise was talking about the way that Erica treated her on the show. And she's like, girl, you know what I'm talking about? Like, they obviously have a history at the end of the day. What that history is, I don't know. But Denise feels some type of way, and I feel like she was clearly stating it. But Erica was acting like she didn't know what the heck was going on. We're moving on with the dinner, and Sutton pulls out her pre-roll, and she just starts, smoking and having a good time at dinner, and I'm not mad at that. And I feel like if Sutton was already not amazing in this scene and doing just great things and amazing, this took her to the next level. It was amazing. We then kind of get like again, where I feel like Denise is aware. We get a Denise versus Dorit because they are, having a cocktail hour after, I guess, the girls are kikiing and cackling. And Dorit walks up to Denise and she's like, is your jacket on upside down or is it backwards or whatever? Comedic. I got it. But Denise was clocking it. Denise is like, girl, don't do this. I know what you're doing. Very coherently to me. I feel like Denise was saying, girl, I'm a little bit lit. Okay, everybody know that I'm a little bit lit. At this point, everybody has already made it seem like I'm not making any sense because I'm a little bit lit. So now you're pointing out that my jacket is a mess. I'm a bit disheveled, girl. It's a lot going on. Okay, look, I know what you're doing. I feel like Denise was very aware. Okay, so stop playing with her. Once Denise leaves, Dorit has to go report to Kyle, and she lets Kyle know that, while she was coming back to the dinner, they were asking where Kyle was, and Sutton had made the comment of in denial about something, and the girls gagged, and so Kyle immediately turns around, and she addresses Sutton, and she's like, what am I in denial of? And Sutton gives a very good response, and she says, well, I don't know, and I thought that was clear to the class. Like, that's the conversation we're having, Kyle. Like, what's your tea? That she keeps asking you that. And Kyle is, again, really good at flipping, not so good at the deflecting part of it, but she's deflecting it, and she's just like, if you know something, then just say it. Like, what am I in denial of? Like, what are you trying to say I'm hiding? And Sutton, again, very clearly is like, girl, that's what I'm asking you. Like, I'm asking you that very question. You let me know. And Sutton elaborates in her confessional. She's like, Kyle doesn't share personal things. And at the end of the day, I just don't have, like, I don't feel bad for Kyle. Like, I don't have an issue with Sutton posing questions to Kyle at the end of the day, because like we talked about, Sutton was kind of beating around the bush with it and not really coming out, but Kyle's doing the exact same thing to Sutton at the end of the day anyway. She's talking about having a drinking problem and having an eating problem, and so she wants to come out and have explicit conversation. Every time she talks to Sutton or about Sutton, she's alluding to something being off with Sutton. So why is it an issue that Sutton's like, okay, well girl, but what's your tea? Like, I don't get why that's an issue. Even when they're like in the kitchen, because you can tell Sutton is really not trying to make it go there. She's responding, and like I said, giving the same energy back to Kyle, and Kyle's not taking it well. At the end of the day, she can diss it, but she can't take it. And so Sutton's trying to let her know, like, girl, I'm really not trying to go there with you. Like, genuinely, if you say everything is cool, then everything is cool. It is what it is. And Kyle's back in her soapbox, and she's like, if you genuinely had those issues as a friend, you wouldn't bring them to me like that. And Garcelle's like, but don't you bring up, haven't you just brought up issues with Sutton? And I'm like, hello? And so Kyle's like, well, yeah, like I did. And she goes into very great detail again, talking about, I don't know if you had one drink or five, and you're on your medication for your feet. And Sutton's like, what? So now you're going to say I don't eat again? And she's like, you don't. Talking about the fact that, she has her throat issue or whatever the hell, something that does not matter. Like, you're putting it out there because you know what you're doing, Kyle. Like, you want us to think Sutton has a drinking problem and she's taking medication and she doesn't eat. Like, come on now. It's very clear. But it's an issue that Sutton is combating that and saying, but what's going on in your marriage? Everything that Sutton is saying is consistent. You're just saying, like, well, I think something's off with Sutton. And she drinks and she doesn't eat. And she takes medicine for her feet. Like, but Sutton's like, okay, but again, what's going on with your marriage? So I definitely don't feel bad for Kyle when Sutton got at her and was like, you already lost two sisters. You don't want to lose another one. Checkmate. Like, look, I have no sympathy for Kyle. Like, is that a low blow? Absolutely. Nobody has any problem admitting that, but she deserved it. And I feel like Sutton brought that up because she knows in her heart of hearts that some of this, if not all of this animosity beneath the surface that's happening between she and Kyle is because Sutton is still friends with Kathy, and Kyle's not in a good place with Kathy. She feels some type of way about that. So I do definitely feel like that's why she has some animosity. And Sutton is trying to wake that up, baby. And so Kyle feels like she has a great point. She's like, you're talking mess, but like you also had an issue with Kathy, but you're not going to tell them that. And Sutton's like, I'll tell them. I'll tell them. Like, I don't care. And Sutton very clearly tells us something that's not surprising at all. Like, it made sense to me, but she basically says, last season when they were talking about the things that were happening on the season with Kathy in the press, she felt like Sutton didn't stick up for her. And they show a clip from, I think it was BravoCon, and Sutton was asked about it, and Sutton really didn't pick a side. She kind of stood in the middle of it. And so as a result, Kathy was upset, and she called Sutton, and allegedly she yelled at her. And so Sutton had a conversation with Kyle where she was like, okay, I understand where you're coming from because I've experienced the same thing from Kathy. Fine, whatever. I was like, yeah, but you were very silent, like when I was feeling some type of way about it. And we get a flashback to when Kyle was just like extremely, extremely dramatic at the reunion and nobody was really coming to her defense. And I don't really blame Sutton. Like, I don't feel like that's something Sutton had to do. Like, at the end of the day, I don't see that being any like contradiction for Sutton. Like, she can have had a situation with Kathy, but that doesn't mean that she has to cut off her relationship with Kathy. She's just acknowledging it. And then we get this whole thing from Erica, who I don't even know why we need Erica's input. But Erica's saying, people are afraid of Kathy because they want to stay in her social circle. And so they don't bring up certain things. And she's a lone wolf and she's not afraid to go against Kathy. And I'm like, so how is Sutton afraid to go against Kathy if she just voluntarily disclosed this story? Like, what? I don't. And I also just find it funny to like hear any opportunity for Erica to like discredit someone or try to call them a liar because we move on. I think it's very convenient now that, Kyle gets to have these friends that conveniently love to work out. Oh my God, so amazing to support her new lifestyle and storyline. She's got Morgan, not her girlfriend, but her workout and tattoo buddy. And now, oh my God, the new housewife. We're friends and she likes to work out too. Woo. So I didn't really learn much about the new lady, Anne Marie, I believe it is, besides the fact that she works out. We get it. And they sit and they have a discussion, and they talk about Sutton, and Kyle's like, I don't know why Sutton's coming at me and about my marriage in this way. And her friend Anne Marie is very much so like, yeah, I agree, blah blah blah. And they talk a little bit about Sutton's esophagus, and Kyle characterizes it as she has a small esophagus. And so Anne-Marie's like, oh, well, I do anesthesiology and I deal with the passageway of the throat. So valid, great, we learned something new. It is relative, but it's also like not really anything we care about. Like, I don't care. I really don't care about Anne-Marie's diagnosis or assessment of whether Sutton has a throat injury that stops her from eating. Like, I just kind of don't feel like I don't think that matters. I don't care. But we then get a scene with Garcelle and Sutton and Denise and Crystal. It's nice to see that group together. I like that Denise got to come and like redeem herself after being lit up. I thought she was going to discuss it. It kind of felt like she was trying to reference it and just like say, ooh, girl, I was lit. But, we really didn't get that. But whatever, she gets a redeeming moment. Crystal's on point this season. Okay, I love how she pointed out, she's talking to Sutton about like, they were kind of poking fun at like the stuff that Kyle was saying about Sutton. And then Crystal points out like, why does Kyle have something to say about your drinking, Sutton, but she didn't have anything to say about Erica's? And I'm like, oh, Crystal. But Sutton's like, look, I don't know. And she moves forward. But in that same breath, Crystal did say, but I am going to hold you accountable because like bringing up the sister thing was a low blow. And Sutton acknowledges like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. But, Denise then gives us more context about the Erica thing because they asked her. And I wonder if this was chopped up a little bit because I can't believe in my heart of hearts that she was going to say that the whole reason that thing happened was because Erica brought up threesomes around her children. They even showed the flashback, but that kind of felt like that was at the tail end of a conversation. I hope. I don't know Denise like that, so I have no reason to really defend her, but I'm just hoping that there was more to it. But from what they showed, her issue with Erica was that Erica brought up threesomes around her kids. I don't know how that lends itself to what she was saying at dinner when she was like, Erica was cool, then she wasn't. Because that makes sense without context, like I said. But using this story to support it does not. Dorit's having a conversation with PK about Kyle, and the first thing she says is like, it's clear that she's having issues with Mo. And I completely forgot that like a little bit of episodes ago, Dorit was the first one that was really on Kyle, like, so what's going on with your marriage? So I'm like, it's so funny how Dorit feels the same way that Sutton does, but Sutton's getting all the slack for it. And then Dorit tries to justify it because obviously a producer is asking her what I'm thinking. Like, so what's the difference here, baby girl? And Dorit's like, well, I would never come to Kyle the way that Garcelle and Sutton are coming at her about it. Like, that's just wrong. And it's like, okay, so you can have that opinion, but the difference is either you bring it up or you don't. That's what tips the scale. Like, do I tiptoe around Kyle and not say what I'm really thinking, or do I just hold my thoughts in and say it in the confessional and with my husband? Dorit, like, seriously. To be honest, and not to be insensitive, but to be honest first, Dorit and PK get into a discussion about their kids that I just completely kind of didn't listen to. So to be honest with y'all, I don't know what was happening. You kind of like tip out of something, then you come back in on the tail end. I'm like, oh my God, pay attention. So I'm piecing it together from kind of what they were saying towards the end of the conversation. And from what I pulled together, I guess they were talking about the fact that the kids were being homeschooled and just like not sheltering the kids as much. And so it was PK's opinion not to shelter the kids as much. And Dorit's just like, even from my robbery, like he still just doesn't understand. And I'm just like, it's not that he doesn't understand, but it's like we're trying to turn the corner. And I don't mean that in terms of get over it, but it just feels like Dorit hasn't moved to that next step. It feels like where Dorit is that she wants to keep telling everyone, I was robbed, I was robbed, I was robbed, I was robbed. But I don't know that we're pushing that forward. Like, okay, you were robbed. We understand that affected you, but now what? And I feel like that's the step that PK is on, like the now what step. Like there has to be a corner that we turn. Like we gotta move this forward somehow, right? Not necessarily get over it, but like, what is our next step? And it doesn't seem like Dorit's on that next step. We're then at a gay bar in WeHo with Erica, which all just feels so contrived and calculated and produced and to me, but okay. And you know what we're here to talk about, of course, reviving Erica's music career. And you know, I guess her audience, target audience, is the gays. So we get it, baby. We see it. And so says that she only ever feels the most present when she's on stage. So I guess fine. And even the producer asks her, like, that's the only time that you ever feel present. And then she kind of throws in a snarky joke, but I guess she's serious. So Erica lives to perform and she wants to do this Las Vegas residency, which we ultimately know she did. Good for her. I'm kind of tired of hearing about this. Lastly, we get a link up between Dorit and Kyle. As soon as they leak up, Dorit's kind of throwing shade at, like, you know, Garcelle and Sutton. She's like, do you have your ring on? Because if you don't, I'm going to have to start rumors. And it's like, girl, you feel the same way that they feel. Like, shut the hell up. And she's even saying more to, like, get on the good side of Kyle. She's like, yeah, it's wrong because Sutton's trying to suggest that you're hiding something. And that's such a low blow. And it's like, you're doing the same exact thing. Like, when this season first started, you were the first one that was like, it's clear that Kyle's not happy and something's going on with Mo. You continuously say it. You even were talking about her Instagram. You're like, girl, I don't see y'all together on Instagram, so what's the tea? Like, you're doing the exact same thing that Sutton is doing. So what the hell are you talking about? Kim shows up, and I'm always interested to know, like, what are these conversations? What are these dynamics? Because why is it that Kyle is cool with Kim, and then she's not cool with Kathy, or she'll be cool with Kathy, but she's not cool with Kim? Like, why does it always flop like that? Like, I'm very confused. I would like to know. But of course, they discussed the whole Kathy thing, and I like getting Kim's perspective and just saying, like, you know, both of y'all could have done things differently, meaning Kyle and Kathy last season. Nobody's necessarily right, nobody's necessarily wrong. Y'all both could have done things differently. But in the moment, you know, obviously things happen. Hopefully y'all can get past it, right? And so, again, a position where it's just hard for me to feel bad for Kyle. I feel like Kyle always wants people to just feel bad for her, kind of like Dorit with the robbery thing. Like, what is our next step? So, you know, I think that that's why Kim kind of was able to sum it up like that. Like, girl, okay, we're not going to keep rehashing this and having the feel bad for Kyle thing. Like, y'all both played a part. You both could have done things differently. Like, what are we doing next at the end of the day? Okay. So hopefully having Kim's presence around Kyle will influence her more than like having a Erica and a Dorit around, because they're just yes men and they enable Kyle to be like Kyle. That's why we have this issue. And I feel like that's why we always have that conflict between Kyle and like her friends enabling her and then her sisters humbling her. So hopefully she takes more to the Kim side of things and we can see all three of the sisters get along at once. The episode was fine. I had a lot of moments where I was hollering. Like, even when I first heard Sutton say the sister thing, I was like, oh. So I'm just like, okay, this episode it's a lot going on. So fine. Like, I did enjoy it. It wasn't my fave, but I enjoyed it. And we'll see what happens in the next one.